Today, I want to talk about the profit model and how there's not just one model that will turn a profit. I often hear some people refer to profit like this. Tom, the only way I can make a profit is I have to gouge the customer and my rate sheet becomes non-competitive. You will see here that that is simply not true. In this example, I'm going to show you 3 different branches who did about the same volume and all were profitable. Just as a refresher, I will go across our 8 KPIs. The top business blood pressure number is all the revenue in basis points. The bottom business blood pressure is all the expenses except for LO comp in basis points. CPI is the critical profit indicator. Simply top business blood pressure minus the bottom business blood pressure equals CPI. Remember, if the CPI is 130 or above, 92% of the time, the branch is profitable. LO comp in basis points. The next column is percentage of LO comp, and it's simply the percentage of loan officer compensation when compared to revenue. Profit or loss in basis points, volume, and then profit or loss in dollars. Now let's compare. In our first pass, you can see volume is within $35,000 of each other. They all made money. Now let's look at column by column and look at the disparity. Starting with the top business blood pressure, E101 had 221 basis points. E102 had 290 basis points, and E103 had 336. That's a huge disparity between E101 and E103, 115 basis points to be exact. Remember, all of these made money. The next column is bottom business blood pressure. 101 had only 78 compared to 138 and 100. The CPI, E101 had 143, E102 had 153, and E103 had a huge number of 236. Remember, CPI is all the money that you have left over to pay the loan officers and for profit. The next column is LO comp in basis points. 79 for E101, 98 for E102, and the highest of all was E103, and it paid out 146 basis points. Let's skip over to the basis points in profit. 101 had 64, 102 had 55, and 103 had 90. All profited somewhere between $25,000 and $41,000. As we take a look at the whole picture now, let me comment on a few things. E101 had the lowest top number, but they ran very efficiently on the expense side, having the lowest bottom business blood pressure at 78. When we look at LO comp, E103 had the highest number at 146. But if you recall, they also had the highest top line revenue or top business blood pressure at 336. So I'm okay with that. Let me focus here on percentage of LO comp. And you can see they range anywhere from 34 to 44%. When the number starts to exceed 50%, I start to get a little worried. But here they're all in line. Now let's talk about how each business model is different. Some of you will say, Tom, if I only paid my loan officer 79 basis points, every one of them would quit. Let me remind everyone about my philosophy on LO comp. I will pay you all the money to do all the work the way I want it done. Let's look at E101 again. What if there were a call center or the company was providing leads from radio ads that the company or branch was paying for? The branch can't afford to do both. They can't pay for ads to provide LO leads and pay the highest comp. Let's talk about the skill set for a minute of each LO in the 3 models. Do you think if you're providing leads to the loan officer, you could get by with a little less talent? During Refi Mania, this disguised a weak loan officer because they didn't need to leave their chair and make sales calls on realtors. And boy, has that changed. This LO might know the guidelines, etc., but they don't need to know how to go out and make sales calls on realtors. When you compare this to the model where E103 is paying 143 basis points, 2 things I want to point out here. One, if I'm going to pay them this high number in LO comp, they must not only be good technically, but they need to be able to source their own business. The second part is referring to one of our lessons in the academy, where the arrangement we make with the loan officer when they first sign up with our organization is this. Here at XYZ Mortgage, we have a couple of different options and comp plans. Plan A, I will pay you 146 basis points, but your rate sheet is built with a 336 basis point margin. In my example, I'm referring to averages, so you get my drift. If the LO can't get the margin on the rate sheet, I have to reduce the comp plan. And if you don't, you have a broken business model. And that's where things start to unravel. Refresher on percentage of LO comp. When the LO is discounting the rate sheet, this was set up as the first indicator that they're discounting, and it will reflect a high percentage going to the loan officers. When I was in my YPO forum, some of the folks were in the food industry. Jimmy John was a maniac when it came down to keeping his food costs under control. The same goes for LO comp. If this is disproportionate with the revenue required, it won't take long for the losses to pile up.